All right, guys. Am I audible to all of you? Is the voices loud and clear? Can you just confirm me? Okay. All right. Okay. So the voice is clear and everything is fine. So we can start the session. But before that, we'll take 5-minute Q&A so that we can let others also to join. Okay. So I'll unmute one by one. Those who want to discuss, you can discuss any topic, or if you have any questions on anything that we have discussed so far, that also we can discuss. 5 minutes. Okay. So let me stop this recording for a moment for 5 minutes, and then I'll unmute one by one. All right. Okay, guys, can we start today's session? So today we will focus on handling questions related to governance and social justice. Very important term, social justice. Okay, governance, we have seen ethical governance, environmental governance, and all those. Here, social justice is the key word. And these questions are crucial because they assess how well you understand the systemic inequalities that exist in society and how you can ensure that government policies promote fairness, equity, and inclusion. Remember that we discussed already that they are looking for certain qualities from you and that they will understand by certain words that you are using in the conversation. So that's why in the beginning itself of this session, I am adding these words, that fairness, equity, inclusion. You remember any questions related to governance, you need to talk about transparency, you want to talk about accountability, you want to talk about fairness, you want to talk about integrity and all those. Same here. Right. Okay. So, social justice is a cornerstone of governance, and you know that very well. So far, you have come. So, you should be knowing that very well. And see, guys, as a civil servant, you're going to play a key role in ensuring that the development is inclusive and benefits of all sections, of society. So, the development is reaching to each and every sections of society. That is something which you need to ensure, and particularly the marginalized communities. So here, questions from this area, they will try to analyze how capable you are in analyzing at least their problems and understanding their problems and coming up with some proactive solutions, an approach of fairness, equity, integrity. If you can demonstrate, that will be better. And in my interviews and my friends' interviews, they often ask this kind of question and ask questions like how I will address issues such as, 1 minute, guys, such as caste-based discrimination, gender inequality. And I was expecting these questions, of course. Why? Tell me why. Because my optional is sociology. So these are the questions which are expected. Caste-based discrimination. Though the member actually started with Sanskritization. I told you this question, right? In one of my interview, the question was started with Sanskritization, which is a concept given by M.N. Srinivas. And from there, they asked a couple of questions related to caste and caste-based discrimination. And then from there, they moved on to gender inequality. And these are basically to check these qualities. Okay, so also to assess the access to basic services of the poor for the poor. So they will ask you questions related to this, and they want to understand, how well, you can understand the situations of poor marginalized sections. Okay, so it's very important to show that you understand the challenges of social justice, you understand the challenges, especially of the marginalized communities, and that you can propose practical solutions to address these challenges. So, guys, having understood the importance of this, let's move on as usual. Let's try to understand some key terms that you need to discuss also. Okay. Now, coming to the key concepts. See, governance and social justice are intertwined. These are like two sides of the same coin. As one of the primary responsibility of civil servant is what? To ensure that the government policies are implemented in a way that promote fairness and inclusion. For whom? It is for especially the entire society. So social justice is actually the ultimate objective. So fairness, inclusion, the marginalized section, the excluded community need to be included. That's the ultimate objective. So these are the concepts which you can see here that you need to be very familiar with, very familiar with, and bring in your answer. Whether you get an opportunity or not, make an opportunity and bring this in your answer. Equity versus equality. See, again, very important topic. You might have studied in ethics, but they'll ask you practical questions here. Equity involves providing resources and opportunities based on need, ensuring that marginalized groups have the support they require to succeed. Equality, on the other hand, focuses on treating everyone the same. So in governance, civil servants must prioritize equity to address systemic inequality. You cannot distribute everything equally. Equality is, something which you cannot follow. And if that is the case, you are not ensuring social justice. People are discriminated for generations, right? So you cannot treat a Brahmin and a Shudra equally. So where you need equity, the concept of equity depends on the need, depends on the requirement you have to provide resources. It's not equality. Okay. Now, coming to see equality, the concept is useful if equal opportunity is there with everyone. Then you can go for the concept of equality. If equal opportunity is not with everyone, then you cannot discuss the concept of equality in any society. So equity is what we need to discuss, and equity is what you need to stress on whenever it comes to your, interview, or this is what you need to make them understand as your personal trait. That you focus more on equity as a civil servant rather than equality. Okay, that is what fairness. If you talk about equality, that's not fairness. Fairness is about talking about equity. Okay, now inclusion. Inclusion means, ensuring that all sections of society, particularly marginalized groups such as women, Dalit, tribal communities, and the poor, the marginalized, have access to government services and opportunities for development, mobility. You are providing opportunity for them for the mobility. Now, coming to the next one, addressing systemic inequality. Very important, deep-rooted issue, especially when it comes to the country like India. Many forms of inequality, such as caste-based discrimination, gender inequality, the economic disparity, are deeply ingrained in society. Okay, and as a civil servant, we will be getting into the details of it in one-to-one sessions. Depends on your optional. If you're sociology optional, we need to sit again for a couple of sessions extra. Right. So here, if you see, civil servants must work to address these systemic issues by implementing policies that promote social justice. Now, empowering the marginalized communities, excluded communities, you need to bring them into it. You bring it or not, it's entirely different. After getting into this, whatever you do it for yourself, you do it for your family, you do it for society. That's completely up to you. Here, you are going to show extreme commitment that you want to serve the society. Okay, but that's not just a statement. Each and every word that you speak should reflect that commitment that you have and your personal integrity also. Whether you have it or not, that's the second question. I never want you to have it. That's a different. That's your choice. That's your life choice. Okay, choices are different, but you're here to crack this, and I'm here to make you well prepared for that 20-30 minutes. That's it. Okay, so empowering the marginalized community. So when it comes to social justice, it also involves empowering marginalized communities to participate in governance and decision making. So this could include initiatives that promote education, skill development, economic opportunities for these communities, etc. Okay, now for example, see, if you are asked how to address gender inequality in access to education, what you can say? I'll give you one answer. Okay, so we are talking about addressing gender inequality in access to education. Okay, so the challenge of, first you talk about the challenge. Okay, so from the previous session, the challenge of addressing gender inequality in education require policies that promote access for girls, particularly in rural areas. So here you're talking about equity and inclusion. And this could include providing scholarships, building schools closer to communities, and raising awareness about the importance of girls' education. So here you are empowering the marginalized communities. Now, in the context of law enforcement, social justice might involve addressing caste-based discrimination in the police force or ensuring that marginalized groups have equal access to justice. For instance, as an IPS officer, you would ensure that police actions are impartial and that, marginalized communities are treated fairly. Like that, you can prove you need to. Now coming to next slide. Yeah. Structuring the answer. Guys, most of the question, same structure, identifying the challenge, analyzing the impact, proposing the solution, ensure long-term social justice. So 50 topics that you're taking, we are coming up with the structure for each of these, ultimately 6 to 7, 6 to 8. That is what you need to follow, which will give a proper reflection of your commitment to public service. So again, when it comes to answering questions about social justice, it's very important that you need to show how you're addressing the systematic or systemic inequalities in a way that promote fairness and inclusion, right? So for that, what you can do, simply follow the framework. Identify the social justice challenge here. If it comes to, environmental related question, identify the environmental or sustainable development challenge there. Okay, so here you need to identify the social justice challenge here. So first, you need to start by clearly defining what is a social justice issue here, whether it's caste-based discrimination, gender inequality, or lack of access to public services, etc. Then analyze the impact. So once you've done with the context, explain how the challenges affect marginalized communities and society at large. For example, discrimination in access to education or healthcare, which can lead to long-term poverty and inequality, like that. Now, propose solution. After analyzing the impact, offer practical solutions. Again, this is something which I emphasize on all the lectures. So, these could be like including targeted government programs, legal reforms, or community-based incentives, initiatives to, address inequality and promote social justice, etc. Then again, ensure long-term social justice. Previously, ensure long-term sustainable development. So there, understanding the challenge which are related to sustainable development. Here, social justice, that's the only change. Depends on the question, you will make small changes. Otherwise, the structure remains the same. So final step is emphasize the importance of long-term social justice. This could involve policies that promote equal access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities, ensuring that future generations have better prospects. For example, if you're asked how you would address caste-based discrimination in rural areas, what you can say is, caste-based discrimination is deeply entrenched in rural areas, okay, and affecting access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities. So you're identifying the challenge here. What's the first step? Identifying the challenge. What's the challenge here? Caste-based discrimination is deeply entrenched in rural areas, which is affecting, access to education, healthcare, economic opportunities. Now, impact. This leads to social exclusion and perpetuates the cycle of poverty and inequality. So the impact. Now, solution. So to address this, I would propose, implementing community-based programs that promote, awareness of caste equality, ensuring that the government services reach all sections of society, and enforcing laws that protect against discrimination. That's the solution. And then long-term social justice, right? You can say long-term social justice can be achieved by promoting education and economic empowerment for marginalized communities, breaking the cycle of inequality, etc. So here you are ensuring long-term social justice. So what was your question? How you will address caste-based discrimination in rural area? What is your answer? I repeat, caste-based, it have 4 steps: identifying the challenge, impact, solution, long-term social justice. So the answer is like this. Caste-based discrimination is deeply entrenched in rural areas, affecting access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities. This leads to social exclusion and perpetuates the cycle of poverty and inequality. To address this, I would propose implementing community-based programs that promote awareness of caste equality, ensuring that government services reach all sections of society, and enforcing laws that protect against discrimination. Now, long-term social justice can be achieved by promoting education and economic empowerment for marginalized communities, breaking the cycle of inequality. To one of my friend in his interview, real interview, he was actually asked how he will address gender inequality. To me also, this question was asked in a different way, gender inequality in access to healthcare. Okay, so he explained that he would focus on increasing the availability of healthcare services in rural areas, training more female healthcare workers, and ensuring that women had equal access to medical care regardless of their socio-economic background, like that. So my point here is, have a structure, follow the structure. Now, what if they ask you in the context of law enforcement, if you're an IPS officer or give an IPS preference, how they can frame it in that? Let's look at the next slide. Let me see if I have. Yeah. So here again, you address the discrimination. These are the steps. Equal access to justice you can ensure, protecting the vulnerable group. So in law enforcement also, promoting law, social justice involved ensuring that basically marginalized communities have equal access to justice and that the police force act with fairness and impartiality. So these are areas that you need to look at. First, addressing discrimination in the police force. See, one of the biggest challenge in law enforcement is ensuring that police force does not engage in discriminatory practices. As an IPS officer, you would be responsible for ensuring that all officers are trained to treat everyone equally, regardless of caste, religion, or gender. Then, ensuring equal access to justice. See, marginalized groups such as women, Dalits, and tribal communities often face barriers in accessing justice. So as an IPS officer, it's very important to ensure that these groups have equal access to legal protection and that their grievances are addressed promptly and fairly. Clear? Now coming to protecting vulnerable groups. See guys, law enforcement always play the critical role in protecting vulnerable groups such as women, children, minorities from abuse, exploitation, and violence, etc. So this could involve setting up special task forces, which can address the crimes against women, crimes against children, crimes against minorities, or ensuring that the police stations are equipped to handle cases of domestic violence and child abuse. Separate wings are assigned. All these can be done. So I'm giving different dimensions and ideas which you need to inculcate in your answer by keeping that in mind. I'm assuming that you're writing down the points that we are discussing. How much resources you need to read if you need to get these refined points that I'm giving. The ones which I'm giving with experience of my 3 interviews and hundreds of my friends' interviews experience, which I have recorded. Right. Now, one example I'll give you. Here, focus on that 3 aspects here. So if you are asked how you will address caste-based discrimination in the police force, what you can say? As an IPS officer, I would ensure that all police officers undergo training in anti-discrimination policies and are held accountable for any discriminatory actions. So here you're addressing discrimination. Additionally, you can say that you will set up or I would set up community policing programs to build trust between the police and marginalized communities, ensuring that these groups feel safe to report crimes and seek justice. So here you are ensuring equal access to justice. Perfect. So guys, I'm expecting that you're taking down the notes. Please do that. In one of my interview also, they've asked how I would handle case of a gender-based violence in a district with high rates of crime against women. And I explained that I would establish a special task force to handle such cases because there is a high rate of crime here in this area, and especially gender-based violence is high. So a special task force which can handle this issue specifically, we need to establish there. And that will ensure that the female police officers were available to assess the victim at any point of time. Female constabulary and female sub-inspector rank officer also will be there to assess the victims. And also discussed about collaboration with NGOs to provide support services for survivors of violence. Okay, so my point is you need to bring in different dimensions in your answer. Now, moving on to a question or general governance, social justice, when it comes to the same structure, but I'll discuss some more points here. In general governance, again, social justice involves addressing systemic inequalities and ensuring that government policies promote fairness and inclusion. So ultimately, when you talk about social justice means what? It's about fairness and inclusion. Excluded people must be coming in. Marginalized people should be getting the benefit. Okay, so these are areas that you need to focus on. Promoting inclusive education. So ensure that marginalized communities have access to quality education, which is very critical for breaking the cycle of poverty and inequality. This is a cycle. You're not having education and then leading to crimes and various issues and no employment, finally leading to poverty. And that poverty, again, coming as a cycle. Because of poverty, you cannot give education to your kids. And that kid become unemployed and go into crime and again poverty. Again, the cycle repeating. So this could involve providing scholarships for, disadvantaged students. So that's how you can bring them back to the school, and improving infrastructure in rural schools. So you can include many people and raising awareness about the importance of education for all the sections, which is again very, very important. Okay, now ensuring equitable access to healthcare. Another important dimension: health, education, economic disparity. These three we need to discuss. Healthcare is another area, very important area, where social justice is very essential. So civil servants must ensure that marginalized groups such as women, tribal communities, and the poor have access to healthcare services. This could involve setting up mobile clinics in remote areas or providing free healthcare services for disadvantaged population. Coming to addressing economic disparity, see, economic disparity again is one of the biggest challenges in social justice. So if you see major challenges in social justice, I would say education and this economic disparity, health, and then gender related. So civil servants, when it comes to economic disparity, a civil servant must work to create policies that promote economic empowerment for marginalized communities, such as providing skill development programs, access to credit, and opportunities for entrepreneurship, etc. Okay, now, if I want to give you an example, let's take a hypothetical question. If you are asked how you would promote inclusive education in rural areas, not a hypothetical question, it's an actual question which was asked to one of my friend. His name is Chakresh. So this question was actually asked to him, and I'll tell his reply. The same structure we all used to follow. The structure was designed based on multiple insights from many of my friends also, and their experiences also, and their scores also, and understanding what they are looking for. Okay, so here what we need to do: identify the challenge, impact, solution, long-term social justice. So let's start. Let's start identifying the challenge. What is the challenge here? Tell that first. The challenge in promoting inclusive education is the lack of infrastructure and resources in rural schools. Now, this set the context for the further answer. This lead to low enrollment rates, particularly among girls and marginalized communities. That's the impact. Now, to address this, I would propose providing scholarships for disadvantaged students, building schools closer to rural communities, and also raising awareness about the importance of education for all. So you provided solution. And long-term social justice can be achieved by ensuring that education policies focus on reducing dropout rates and increasing access to quality education for marginalized groups. So the answer is perfectly structured, crafted with what they are looking for. What the question? How you will promote inclusive education in rural area? What's your answer? Do I need to repeat it? Yes, I can repeat, no problem, Varun. You can, it's not that you need to write down the answer. You write down the structure, which is already there with you. Fit into that. Because you can identify many challenges. Guys, I'm giving one or two. This is not necessarily the best one. I'm giving one or two solution. I'm identifying one or two impact, but there are hundreds and thousands of impact on this. So let me discuss it as an answer, how I will answer this. So I got the question, right? How would you promote inclusive education in rural area? So I'll start answering like this. Sir, the challenge in promoting inclusive education is the lack of infrastructure and resources in rural areas. And this lead to low enrollment rates, particularly among girls and marginalized communities. To address this, I would propose providing scholarship for disadvantaged students, building schools closer to rural communities, and raising awareness about the importance of education for all. Long-term social justice can be achieved by ensuring that education policies focus on reducing dropout rates and increasing access to quality education for marginalized groups. Another friend of mine got a question that how he will address economic disparity in rural areas. See, now I'm taking the friends' questions because it's almost 30 sessions and all the questions which are asked to me is over. Otherwise, it will be repeating. So these are questions which are asked to my friend. But again, if the context come, I repeat the question, no issue. So he was asked, yeah, how he would address economic disparity in rural area. So he basically explained that he will focus on promoting skill development programs for unemployed youth. Guys, each and every point that I'm discussing here is for the benefit of you. Write it down. Each and every lecture that I'm giving, 50 lectures, these are source of abundant information, which you can never get in this consolidated format. Trust me, I bet you on this. Okay, so he said skill development program for unemployed youth, ensuring that they had access to credit and which is for starting the business, and creating job opportunities to through public work programs, etc. So creating job opportunity, that's how you can create the problem of economic disparity, right? So this is something which you need to do. Otherwise, you can structure it. I'm just giving the key points. Now, I'll also give you another personal experience in this context. Yeah, this question I've already discussed with you. In one of my interview, this question was asked how I would address gender inequality in access to government services in rural areas. So here, now again, 4 steps: identify the challenge, impact, solution, long-term sustainability, long-term social justice. So because it is a social justice question, you need to understand what dimension the question is asked. Is it related to sustainable development? Is it related to ethical governance? Is it related to social justice? So here it is social justice. So I need to identify the challenge with respect to social justice. What's the social justice issue involved here? And what's the long-term solution with respect to the social justice, right? So here I began by identifying the challenge, explaining that women in rural areas often face barriers in accessing healthcare, education, legal services due to cultural norms and lack of infrastructure. Mostly it is due to either religious restrictions or caste-based restrictions or cultural restrictions, etc. Right? So you talk about that. And then After that, I analyze the impact of this inequality, explaining that it perpetuates poverty and it limits economic opportunities for women, and that lead to poor health and education outcomes. And then to address this issue, I propose creating mobile healthcare units that could reach remote areas, providing legal aid services for women, and launching awareness campaigns to promote gender equality, etc. Finally, I emphasize the importance of long-term social justice, explaining that these policies should focus on empowering women through education, creating economic opportunities, and also legal protections, ensuring that future generations have equal access to government services. Right? How well an answer is. Do you want to break your head if you have the structure? You just need to fit into the structure or not. Like this, we have structure for each and every question. So let's conclude, guys. See, what I want to tell you is social justice is very critical aspect of governance. And it's very important to demonstrate that you can address systemic inequalities in a way that promote fairness, inclusion, equality or equity, and empowerment. You can empower the marginalized section. You can include the excluded. When answering questions about social justice, always make sure to follow that structure which I've given to you. Identify the challenge, analyze the impact, propose practical solution, promote long-term equity. Always answer from your heart, or make them feel that you answer from your heart, but you are going to give an answer from your mind and brain. Use your brain to answer, but make them feel that you're answering from heart with that emotion, that extreme, emotion and commitment is there from your side to serve these marginalized section. Whether you have it or not, that is completely immaterial, irrelevant. After that 20 minutes, it is of no use. So in that 20 minutes, make them feel that you speak from heart, you speak with all the emotions, you speak with extreme integrity and commitment to serve those marginalized, those excluded, etc. If you get questions like marginalized women, this is the best opportunity you are getting to market yourself. I would say women is always a very good marketable item. If you get an opportunity, never miss it. Okay, so again, always stay updated with respect to any social justice policies and practice answering the questions. Let's look at an assignment. Take any challenge, social justice challenge, discuss a framework that we have discussed and record it, send to the group or send to any experienced members who are available in our group and get your guidance. You can send to me also. Okay, so that's it, guys. Thank you so much. We will move on to the Q&A. I'll stop recording and then I'll unmute one by one.